Hi, friend. How are you? I've missed you so. Okay. Hi, how are ya? I'm nervous right now. Can you tell? Okay. So, welcome. This is the first video podcast. This is episode 7, called Learning from My Mistakes, and this is gonna be a mini series just throughout the podcast. From here on out, I will just be collecting lessons that I learned, and I casually do reflection every once in a while. It's part of my journaling. It's actually one of my favorite parts of journaling, honestly, is like just doing reflection. I feel like I learned so much through doing that. If you don't actively do reflection on yourself, like how do you learn from your mistakes, bruh? Like, I don't know how, like, I don't want to say normal person, but like, I don't know how people that don't journal or do reflection, like, learn from their mistakes, like, actively or consciously. Like, I feel like that's the top tier way of doing it, is like looking at like, hey, I did these things and they resulted in this way and it made me feel this way, and like next time, like I can now take that wisdom and like apply it to like next time, because you know things come around, and I don't know, that's like law and order of things, is like karma, right? You keep dealing with similar situations and or people until those situations and or people are learned from or resolved all the way through. This podcast originally started as something that I had ideas for it when I originally started. Basically, I was going to be taking a module from this course that I created to help people with their mental health and their struggles, and basically expand it. It was a module called Loving Yourself Queer, and I was basically going to take that and expand it into a podcast, because I felt like that was one of the most significant modules in it, at least for me, being a queer individual. It helped so much. And then I kind of started the podcast and it took on a life of its own. Like, it really did. I kind of want to get back to that a little bit. I feel like a lot of it has been me and just like my personal story, but also like putting in tidbits of growth and just like different exercises that we can all do that like help us get through the struggles and the bullshit that life be throwing at us sometimes. And I will definitely keep including the personal things that I go on in my life that I feel like will be beneficial to everyone, but I do want to do more things that I had originally planned. So we'll be switching directions a little bit, shifting a little bit, and doing more things like this, where I'm kind of teaching a little bit more than just like straight up feeling. I went through all of the podcast episodes recently, and like, first off, I love that like you can see the growth from like the beginning to like the last two episodes. The last two episodes like made me really proud when I released them. I was like, oh my god, wait, am I getting the hang of this? And like, I considered deleting them when I was going through like when I was listening to everything back couple days ago. I was like, wait, should I delete the first parts? Like they're not that good, like, but I think it makes significantly more sense to keep those. It makes sense to keep them so that way like you see the growth, because not everyone starts out amazing. Like, when you start at something, 95% of the time you suck at it. You just gotta keep working, and you suck a little bit less every single time you do that, and like that can be shown throughout this podcast. Like, and I hope that as I continue to learn and change and grow, so will the podcast. It will continue to evolve and become better and better, and like I'll be able to show new better ways of doing things throughout each episode, that each episode will get better and better, because life is about baby steps, and it's just about taking it day by day, piece by piece, piece by piece. Okay, I'm not gonna start singing, but like, love you, Kelly Clarkson. Yes. Anyways, long intro, I know, But I just wanted to say all of that, and that I missed you. I missed doing these podcasts. I missed just like talking to myself, learning from myself, doing these types of things. Like, I used to, like, I'm a really terrible sleeper, so it's like 1 a.m. right now when I'm filming this. But this has always kind of been the time that I've done these podcasts. It's like a lot of time. It's like in the middle of the night, and I'm just like working through things. And I've missed doing that. Like, it's been over a month since the last time that I've recorded something. And in that last month, like, my life has been a little bit of a shit show, but like also been like really amazing at the same time. And I acknowledge that the reason that it's been a shit show is because I became disconnected from myself. So it's a perfect transition segue to my first one. Okay, first off, like, this is just like sort of like a note for myself, but I think this is something that is always really important before I get into number one. It's just like, when I create this podcast, I want it to be from a place of love rather than from lack. I consider myself like a creator in this world. I create art. I, want to make music. I crochet and I write and I do photography and all of these beautiful different things that just create into the world. And now I'm creating things like this that can help people, and like, doing videos. And I feel like, as a creator, one of the most important things that we can always remember is to create from a place of love rather than from a place of lack. I feel like when we create from places of lack, it doesn't provide the same joy that it will if you create from a place of love. And I also know that, like, I personally have created from places of love and places from lack. And like, you can even see that within this podcast. Like, there have been episodes where like I'm creating from a place of lack, like, because like I'm struggling and I'm working through things and I'm kind of just thinking out loud. And like, specifically, like, I'm kind of thinking of like the first episode that I ever did on this. Like, I was really just like fucking going through it, and I was like, we're just gonna do it. We're gonna hit full send and just go. And like, I did. And like, it shows compared to episodes that I did from a place of love. I see that in my art, like art that I create from a place of lack, because I feel like I need to, or even sometimes when I'm like really struggling and really depressed and I like write poetry, sometimes it just makes me more depressed. Like, rather than when I create from a place of love, like if I am really connected to something, really enjoying something, and then I write poetry about it, or like make a painting like based off of that, like I always tend to like it a lot more. So that's just my bonus point for anyone out there that is also a creator, also an artist, also loves bringing beautiful things into this world. It's like, special bonus for us is like, remember to connect to your heart. Remember to create from your heart. Because when you create from your heart, you won't go wrong, ever. These transitions are really bad, but it's fine. Okay, number one. Oh, yeah, see, I miss being done with myself and just making myself laugh. So these are things that I've relearned. So a lot of things that I'm going to share with you are things that you've probably heard before, and like, I'm going to sound like a greeting card a little bit just because there are probably things that you've heard before. But one of my mentors, Tim Hun, he talks about the worst thing that you can ever say to yourself is, I already know that. Because when you say the words, I already know that, you're closing yourself off to new information flowing in. You're closing yourself off to new ideas, new possibilities. But also, if you say, I already know that, and you don't, then you're robbing yourself of the wealth of knowledge. And also, there's a difference between knowing something and actually implementing it in your life, actually doing it, actually following through with that information, or actually like taking that information and applying it to your life. So I want you to keep that in mind when we're going over these things. So Here are some things that I've relearned recently. Number 1, everything is always easier said than done. Number 2, don't be so hard on yourself. Number 3, learn when to say no. Number 4, trust your intuition. Number 5, don't throw away friendships from the past. Number 6, it's okay not to have it all figured out. And number 7, don't limit yourself with labels. So these are some things that, like I said, I've relearned, but there are also new things, new realizations, new lessons that I'm putting together just based off of things that I've been through in the past month and a half since the last time that I've talked to you, my dearest friend. So, number 1, everything is always easier said than done. This includes letting go of harmful things that other people say and do that can really be triggering for us. So for me, in the past couple of months, that's something that I constantly need to remind myself of. The last episode, I talked about some things that were going on with my family and my aunt, and that just turned into a whole thing. It was Christmas, and I wanted to talk about family and how family can be difficult, especially like around the holidays. And it was difficult. Like, I remember feeling really crappy and then like doing my things to like heal myself, and like I made myself feel so much better. And I recorded that podcast, and I did it from a place of love. I did it from like, a higher place of being, rather than doing it from like a place where I was like struggling and really like suffering a lot. And I was really proud of myself when I made that. Like I was like, fuck yes. I was like, I got it. I'm doing the things. I'm pouring love into myself. Like, I'm putting myself and my needs first. And like, that's great. And I was so proud of myself. But I think the thing that we have to remember is that when it comes to things like that, when it comes to, okay, I'm gonna keep pouring love into myself to help me get over this like depressive state, it's always easier said than done to do that. And if it's not something that you're constantly doing, constantly like taking the time and energy to do, especially like if that's not your natural place of being, like anyone that struggles with their mental health, like a lot of times for us, like our natural state of being isn't love. It's something that you constantly need to work at. So it's all good and dandy to be like, okay, cool, I did the love thing, but then sometimes like you forget about it. We don't keep doing it, and that's where you can really struggle. And so like you can say that you're good, you can say like, oh, I'm done, I'm over it, but like, are you really? Or are you just lying to yourself? Because that's what I was doing. I was telling myself that I was good, that I was over it, but really, like the rest of that week, I was in a downward spiral the entire time. And you know what? I wasn't pouring love into myself every day. The first couple of days, I did really well. I was all about taking care of me, putting my needs first, and I did that. But you know what? After like day 3, I stopped. And I acknowledge that I stopped. And I don't know why. Like, I mean, I do know why. Things were said or done, and I found myself really triggered. And it was just like old wounds kind of rearing their nasty head, combined with just an old environment that triggers old coping mechanisms. But it's also more than that. It's like, I find a lot of times with myself personally, that I sometimes lie to myself. And I think that's something that we all do. We tell ourselves we're over something when we're really not. We tell ourselves that we're all good when we're really not. And then like, because we tell ourselves we're good, we're not like doing the work to heal that wound or even acknowledge that wound, because you're like, nah, I'm good, I'm chilling, I'm fine, I'm living my life, it's all good. And then like it's actually you're dying inside. You know. And sometimes you like end up spiraling out because of it. It can lead to worsening your mental health, or you know, you treating yourself not from a place of love, instead being doing harmful things to yourself, putting yourself in harmful situations. And like, that's the thing that I want us to be able to let go of. That's the thing that I want us to be able to work through, is like, so much of my life I have lived putting myself in harmful situations because I didn't want to deal with the emotions that I was going through. And so I just kept repeating the same harmful thing over and over and over again. And so in saying that and acknowledging that, I want to again remind you that this first one is, everything is easier said than done. So if you are the type of person like me that, you know, has a harder time letting go of things, even acknowledging your feelings and emotions sometimes, that's okay. It's okay to know that that's what you should be doing and still struggle to do that. It's okay to like need to make an effort to look after yourself, to look after your emotions, to make sure that you're okay. It's okay if you need to make an effort to do those things. It's okay if it doesn't come seamlessly and flawlessly. Like, for so many years of my life, this was not how I lived. I did not live my life doing emotional check-ins. I did not live my life from a place of peace. I lived my life from a place of chaos, from a place of spiraling destruction, garbage can fires. Like, and I think that's a really important thing to remember, is like, if you're new to healing, if you're new to this journey, give yourself a break. Everything is always easier said than done. And that brings me to my number 2. Don't be so hard on yourself. Those two kind of go hand in hand. You know, when you're new at this, you're gonna suck at it in the beginning. Any new thing that we try, 95% of the time, we're not good at it the first time you try. Unless you're just like that good at everything, or you're a prodigy or something. But I feel like a lot of the times, if it's not your super secret skill and you're trying something new, you're not going to be that great at it. None of us start amazing. None of us start awesome. We're not perfect, and the journey will be messy, just like we are. And that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You are beautiful anyways. You deserve love and compassion and joy and respect anyways. Life is messy, and we are messy. And that's okay. We weren't designed to be perfect beings. We weren't. We were designed to be hot messes. Nah, just kidding. I mean, we have the capability to like not be a hot mess. And that's the important thing that we have to remember, is like, you get to decide where you want to put your time and energy. And if you decide that you would rather put your energy into being an asshole to yourself, being hard on yourself, especially when it comes to things that you're struggling with, then that's where you're deciding to put your energy into. You're deciding to put your energy towards harming yourself rather than helping yourself and loving yourself. And so I think it's really important to remember, don't be hard on yourself, especially when you're struggling. Especially when you need that love. Sometimes life is a fucking bitch. And we be going through it, and then we add to our own stress by being dicks to ourselves, by being bullies to ourselves, by being hateful and harmful to ourselves with our thoughts, with our actions. And this is something that like I can be guilty of as well. Like, I am not immune to this. Like I said, especially when I'm in places where old coping mechanisms are very easy to fall into. I spent Christmas, the week before Christmas, at my dad's, and I spent some time there after the New Year's. Anytime that I spend time at my dad's, it's the house that I grew up in. It's the house where I struggled the most, where I went through the most terrible periods of my life, where I really struggled with my depression, where I really struggled with trauma, where I really struggled with anxiety all the time, every single day. That house is filled with dark memories for me. And so anytime I find myself in that place again, anytime I find myself in that environment again, I'm way more likely to struggle. I'm way more likely to slip. I'm way more likely to treat myself with things like shame and fear, anger, disrespect. I'm way more likely to let the depressive thoughts win than the thoughts that are fueled by love. And I do try, and I think that's the important thing to remember is don't be hard on yourself, because sometimes you're trying and sometimes things are still gonna suck. Sometimes we're still gonna fall into bad coping mechanisms and bad habits, and in those moments, that's when you need your love the most. So don't be hard on yourself. Don't feel ashamed. For me, when it comes to not being too hard on myself, I think the other thing that I always have to remember too is to respect my boundaries. Boundaries are a relatively new thing for me. It kind of all came hand in hand when I was doing my healing journey and just helping myself emotionally. And one of the things that I can definitely be guilty of is pushing myself beyond my own boundaries, making myself work harder, making myself do more things that I feel like I should be doing. One of the things that I still really struggle with is driving. Driving can be really triggering for me in a lot of ways. When you're in LA, you have to drive everywhere and it's crazy freeways. And there was this day where I was just, there were things that I had to do. I was meeting someone in LA and then wanted to do errands afterwards, and I was just really struggling mentally and emotionally, and I kept forcing myself to go, kept forcing myself to do things and keep driving, and I got lost, and it was just a whole thing. And at some point I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go home. I think I just need to go home. And for a second there, I really wanted to start beating myself up. I really wanted to start telling myself what are you doing? Why are you running away from this fear rather than facing it? And all of these other things that you should be strong and have courage and blah blah blah, which are things that I literally told myself my entire life growing up. My entire life I always told myself that I had to be strong, and I pushed my boundaries. I didn't respect my own boundaries. I was too fucking hard on myself for no goddamn reason. For no reason. I thought that it would make me stronger, it would make me better, and again, old coping mechanisms coming up in old places. This is the same exact type of shit that I used to do to myself all the fucking time. And I think it's something that's really important for us to remember is you don't need to be so hard on yourself all the time. You don't need to be Superman. You don't need to fucking carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. The world does not need to be on your shoulders. You are a human being. You're doing your own thing. You have your own struggles. You have your own feelings. You have things in your life that are going on, and that is 100% okay. It's okay not to be able to have it all figured out. It's okay not to know the answers or know what the right way forward is sometimes. It's okay to question and guess. It's okay not to be 100% certain. All of those are 100% okay. And you know what? Rather than forcing myself to keep driving that day, I went home and I got myself Wingstop. And I just did me things. I spent time on myself. spent time with myself. And you know what the shitty thing is? It's like I was so disappointed in myself for the fact that I didn't keep pushing myself in my boundaries, that I almost didn't want to like give myself what I wanted to eat. Like I was gonna get myself something that wouldn't have brought me as much joy, sort of like as a form of punishment, because I didn't feel like I was worthy or deserving of the other thing. And I feel like that's another way that I personally am too hard on myself, is like I deprive myself of things that will bring me joy. And I feel like that's why the fact that I've been spending the past couple of weeks just trying to like infuse myself with that love, do the things that bring me joy, and the past couple of days I've been so great about it, and I've seen a significant difference. Periods where I am depriving myself of things that fill me with joy versus periods where all I do is fill myself with joy, there is a significant difference in my mental health, in my energy, and in my desire, in my passion, and in all of it. Like how are you supposed to have the will to live, let alone the will to live the life that you truly want to live, that you deserve to live a life filled with joy, if you're beating yourself up, if you're being too hard on yourself, if you're your own worst enemy, if you're your own fucking bully, if you're bullying yourself, if you're being too hard on yourself, please stop. Know that you are worthy and deserving of love. You are worthy and deserving of joy. You don't need to be so hard on yourself. You're trying your best. You are a human being trying your best, and you are not perfect, and that's okay. You're gonna mess up, and that's okay. And that's what this is all about. This entire episode is about me messing up. It's about mistakes that I made and how I learned from them. And that's the important thing to remember. It's not the mistakes that we make, but it's what we do after the mistakes. Whether we learn from them or if we keep repeating them. And I've been the person that does both. Now I actively learn from my mistakes. Now I do things like this that help me reflect and help me learn from my mistakes. Even doing this episode within itself, like I will learn things from the mistakes that I make recording this episode. And it's a beautiful thing, because for so many years of my life, I just kept making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And then one day, I decided I was tired of harming myself. I decided I was tired of being my own worst enemy, being the villain in my own story. I decided I wanted to live, and enough was enough. And that I was worthy of a life filled with joy. And you know what? You are too. Which brings me to number 3. Learn to say no and be a little more selfish. Because that's something we all need. I feel like selfish gets a bad rap. We think of selfish as these like really greedy, really seedy people that only give fucks about themselves and will do anything at the cost of anyone else for their own gain. The type of selfish that I want to be, that I want you to be, is the type of selfish where you put yourself and your needs first, regardless of what other people will think or do or say. That's the type of selfish that I'm trying to work on, is putting myself and my needs first, regardless of what anyone in my life, anyone outside of my life, regardless of the thoughts and opinions of others. We spend so much of our lives trying to please the people around us. our friends, our family, our culture, our society, the people we look up to, our teachers, our coaches. And I think instead of spending your life trying to please everyone around you, you deserve to spend your life trying to please you. At the end of the day, you're the only one that can truly get joy out of your existence. Your existence is for you. This life is for you. And if you're living it for someone else, you're doing yourself and them a disservice. You're robbing them of knowing the true individual that you could be if you simply allowed yourself to be. If you allowed yourself to be the most complete, fullest, authentic version of yourself, you would be so joyful. You would light up from the inside out, and you would share that joy with them. You would show them what true joy looks like, and you could even inspire them to do that within themselves. We rob the people around us when we refuse to say no to them. We rob ourselves when we refuse to say no to others. If you're putting the needs of everyone around you before your own, then I want you to take a look at that and ask yourself why. Is it a sense of duty? Is it just what you were always taught? Is it something that you feel like you have to do or should be doing? For me personally, a lot of it has to do with the way that I was raised, but also the culture that I was sort of raised in. Both my parents are educators, and they're both, my dad is an immigrant from El Salvador. My mom is first generation Mexican American. I feel like there were certain things in my life that were just decided for me, that I felt like I didn't really have a choice in. There were certain things in my life that I knew I just had to do because of who my parents were. Like going to school, for example, right? I knew I had to go to university. Like there was no option, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I was gonna get a higher education, and I had to do whatever it took to do that. As much as I'm grateful that I did go to school, because I would have never found a home in Hawaii had I not, I also recognize that if I had done what I truly wanted, I probably wouldn't have gone to school. I probably would have spent time on me, tried to heal. But I also don't think that healing would have been possible in the place that I was in. And I think this is going to be a bonus, a bonus thing to remember, is like, we'll call this number 3.5. Personally, I believe in divine timing. I believe that everything happens for a reason, but also everything happens in exactly the right time that it needs to happen in. So one of the most important things to remember with learning to say no and being a little more selfish is that the people that really love you are going to support you in this. They're going to support you in putting up boundaries and saying no to things to say yes to yourself. A really good example of this was when I was in LA. There was a friend there that I hadn't seen in a really long time, and we went to high school together, and I was just really fucking struggling. I was having a really rough ass day, and we were supposed to hang out. We were supposed to go into town, hang out, eat, just chill together. So even though I was supposed to spend this, awesome day in LA with this friend, I just messaged her that I wasn't doing well, that I was struggling a lot. I was really fucking depressed, and I didn't have it in me to drive into the city. I didn't have it in me to be social. And she understood that. And rather than being like, oh, well, whatever, like, you know, she tried to help me. She tried to help me. She tried to offer other possible options for us to see each other for when I was feeling better. She tried to help me work through the problem rather than being like, okay, well, fuck you, like, you know. And I think that's an important thing to remember is like, when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to saying no to other people so you can say yes to yourself, the people that really love you and support you are going to support you saying no to them. They're going to understand and they're going to love you no matter what. And that's the really important thing to remember. And by saying no to this friend on that day, I was able to pour love into myself, and I was able to have the most amazing day that I had in such a long time. I went and got a bagel at my favorite place, and then I ended up in this like random trail and just like wandered with the trees. I ate my bagel under a tree and was dancing and listening to music, and I laid in a field and just like wandering around and just like ended up at the bookstore, and it was all of these beautiful things. It was just like a day of me exploring and adventuring and just like finding new amazing things that I love, but also reconnecting to parts of myself that I had lost because I had lost the adventurous part of myself. That part of me has been gone for, I feel like, years now. And it makes me sad because that was such an apparent part of my life. Being an adventurer has always been who I was and who I wanted to be. Like, going off and like wandering into the forest is like, makes me so fucking happy. And I wouldn't have had that day, I wouldn't have reconnected to those parts of myself if I hadn't said no to my friend. If I hadn't been brave enough to say, you know what, I'm not doing so hot right now. I need some time, I need some space, I just need to figure some shit out. And it's important to remember that. It's important to remember that you can say no, but it's important to remember that you deserve to say no if you want to say no. You don't ever have to do anything for anyone else. No one is in control of you or your life but you. And you know what? Saying no to her not only led to a really amazing day with myself, but 2 days later, we hung out, and it was the most amazing experience. It was the most fun that I've ever had with that friend. If I'm being honest, like, I felt so joyful and free and just myself in so many ways. And it's because I am who I am now. When we were friends before, when we were kids, I was going through so much and I was struggling so much that like I didn't know how to be in friendships. And there are parts of me that still don't know how to be in friendships, but like I am so much better at like being present, being in the moment, being able to like be joyful because I'm not fucking depressed all the time. Like, I can be a better friend to others because I'm a better friend to myself now. And that day was a perfect example of that. Like, saying no to her and saying yes to myself, and then it leading to an even better gathering like 2 days later. Like, we had sushi, we went fucking to the mall. Like, it was a beautiful day. We hung out, we did some shenanigan things. Like, it was so beautiful and it made me so fucking happy. And like it made me really joyous to like rekindle the friendship. And if I hadn't listened to myself, if I hadn't trusted myself, it wouldn't have happened. Which brings me to my number 4. Trust your intuition. Now, intuition can be described as a lot of different things to a lot of different people. A lot of people refer to it as, you know, that gut feeling. For me, it's the little voice in my head but also like a sway. There's a saying that I heard a while back: intuition whispers and anxiety screams. So for me, my intuition is like a gentle guidance. It's trusting myself and trusting my ideas, my decisions, my actions, but it's also trusting that guidance, trusting that little sway, that little direction, that little I guess I don't know how to describe it in people words. It's that feeling of, this is what I should do. This is aligned with who I am. This is what I'm guided to do and be. And just trusting that. If I hadn't trusted my intuition, I wouldn't have had that magical day with myself. If I hadn't trusted my intuition and said no to my friend, all of the magical things that I did that day, all of the new discoveries that I made that day, the reconnection to myself, to who I really am, wouldn't have happened. And that amazing day that I had with my friend a couple days later wouldn't have happened either. And so I'm so grateful for trusting myself and my feelings and my emotions, but I'm also so grateful for trusting my intuition, because it guides me and it leads me to exactly where I need to be, exactly when I need to be. It leads me to hear the things that I need to hear, know the things that I need to know, and see the things that I need to see. And I am so grateful. So, we've gone through the first 4, which are all things that I've relearned recently. But now we're going to go through the last 3, which are things that are sort of new to me, if I'm being quite honest. Just more realizations that I've made in the past couple of months that I feel like are really important. Number 5, don't throw away old friendships from the past. If they loved you then, they will love you now. And this primarily pertains to, well, to everyone. But for me, I've been scared of people my entire life. I never considered myself the type of person that knew how to make friends. Like, people scare me and making friends scares me. And I'm a friendly person, but I never felt that I was good at making friends. And yes, that's a limiting belief, but that's the way that I felt my entire life. I felt like I could never connect to people. And being queer, coming out as trans, like, there were so many things that make reconnecting with old friends hard. So when I started identifying as non-binary in 2020-ish, a lot of things sort of changed in my life, but I also got really scared of reconnecting with old people in my life. And a lot of this has to do with sort of my family and their whole reaction to me being non-binary and just like changing my name and new pronouns and things like that, and them just being really awful at it. Coming out as non-binary was probably one of my roughest coming outs. That's for a lot of reasons, and because of that, there was a lot of pain and fear and insecurities in who I was, and whether the people that were in my life before I identified that way were gonna love me or accept me or use my name or call me by my dead name, if they were gonna use the proper pronouns, or if they were even gonna care enough to try. Because my family at that time really didn't. They didn't care. They didn't try. Besides my sister. And it was really difficult. It really sucked, and it was really shitty. And it made me avoid my family like the plague even more than I ever had before. The things that happened with my family led me to being really fearful and terrified of just reconnecting with people from my life previously to when I identified as non-binary or started calling myself August. And I've kind of been battling with that fear ever since. And since I moved back to California, I've been coming into contact with a lot of people from my life beforehand, like people that I went to high school with, all knew me as my dead name. And I was really fucking terrified. I was so fucking scared. And I still am sometimes. But the things that those people have shown me is that the people that truly love and appreciate you are going to support you. They're going to support you and your decisions. And they're going to keep loving you the way that they used to love you, because you're still you. It doesn't matter what you're called. It doesn't matter what you look like physically. It doesn't matter what your pronouns are. They loved you then, and they will love you now. If there was unconditional love there before, there will be unconditional love there after. Now. These people, they changed my life, but they also changed the way that I feel about friendship. I never thought that people saw me or really knew me before I identified as August. I never felt like I was real or truthful to who I was, so how could my friends ever see who I truly was? How could they ever know? But the truth is, they did. They knew me better than I knew myself. In fact, some of my friends that I've known the longest when I came out were like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, oh, we knew the entire time. And it is, like, they know. They loved me then, and they love me now. And that love, it's beautiful. It changed my life, and it continues to change my life every day. They remind me that I'm still me. It doesn't matter how this outside form changes. It doesn't matter what happens to my body physically when I start taking tea. It doesn't matter how I look or how I dress or how I sound or any of that, because I'm still me. I'm still a little weirdo goofball that just like and the beautiful thing is, the more that I connect to these friendships, the less scared I get to meet people from my past. And one of my best friends from high school, she got married in January, and that was super fun because it was the first time that like I've ever been able to like attend like a wedding like that for my friends. And there were people there from high school that I knew before that were sort of like acquaintances with, like knew about but wasn't super close with. And there were also people that like I was closer with but like haven't seen in a really long time. And I was really scared of those interactions. But I was significantly less scared than the very first time that I ever rekindled with a friend from before. And it's the same thing of, it's those little steps forward, and it's gonna be a little less scary every single time. And just knowing that and trusting that, and like being able to step into those situations 100% more myself and 100% more confident than I've ever been. Because I feel like myself now. I appreciate myself and I love myself, and I know that like that carries through into each one of those interactions, and it carries through in the way that those old friends see me, and they know that I still care about them, and I know that they still care about me. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters, because as time passes, we learn and we change and we grow, and we're able to be better friends to each other. And that's the most beautiful thing that I ever knew was possible. So, number 6, it's okay not to have it all figured out. It's okay to take it one day at a time. Baby steps, inching forward. We always hear the slow and steady wins the race, but it's so much more true than I ever realized. The past couple of weeks have really shown me that. And the past week alone has really shown me that. Is like, if you take the little baby steps to implement beautiful things into your life, those beautiful things will stay and they'll grow exponentially, and the joy that you live in your life will grow exponentially every single day. Number 7, don't limit yourself with labels. We don't fit in perfect little square boxes, and that includes us queer folk. We don't fit in perfect little queer boxes. I think a lot of times, as human beings, it's really easy for us to just want to label things, to just want to like categorize. And we do that for different reasons. I think it helps our brains, but also like looking at it from the queer aspect, it helps us build a sense of community. Like even within like race and religion and culture and things like that, it's like it helps us build connections. If you're able to say, I'm this thing, then you're able to find other people that are also that thing and build that sense of community. But I also feel like labels can be very limiting. And I've seen this in myself in lots of different ways. Growing up as a kid, being born female, I limited myself because I was born female, and there were things that I felt I wasn't allowed to do because I was born female. And there were things that my culture told me that I wasn't allowed to do because I was born female, and I subscribed to those ideals for a really long time. It's the same thing as if I subscribed to the ideals of what genders and sexuality stereotypes for queer people. I don't want to be the type of person that puts myself in a little box and tells myself I have to stay there, especially when it comes to something as complex as who I am. I believe that as human beings, we are fluid. We're constantly changing. Change is the only constant in this entire universe. Things are constantly changing. Each second is an opportunity for change, but each second something changes. Whether it's your breath, the air around you, the time of day, change is constant. And so when we label ourselves, we're claiming things for versions of us that don't exist yet. Because who you are right this second isn't necessarily who you'll be tomorrow or the day after. And so I think it's important to remember that as much as we want to label ourselves, it's important to remember that that label doesn't define you. In tarot, there's this saying, especially when it comes to general readings, keep what resonates, leave what doesn't. And I think that same thing can be applied to labels here. You keep what resonates about the label, but you don't need to subscribe to everything about that label. And this goes across any general label, whether it's religion or politics or how you identify, what your traits are, what your characteristics are, how you project yourself into the world, what your personality is, where you are on the spectrum, all of these different things that have fluidity. Like they always talk about in politics that like the majority of people are neither on the left or on the right. They usually find themselves in the middle somewhere. And I think it's dumb that when it comes to voting and stuff like that, you have to subscribe to either left or right. I think the same thing happens with us as human beings, as we feel like we have to label ourselves rather than just sitting where we are. we force those labels onto ourselves rather than just sitting where we are and just letting ourselves be. And I think that's a really important thing to say right now, as well, as just let yourself be whoever it is that you want to be, whatever it is that you feel that you need to do. Allow yourself to be that. Allow yourself to do it. Allow yourself to speak from your heart and soul. Be truthful to who you are. Be truthful to every piece of you, because you fucking deserve it. You are worthy and deserving of the love that you give, and you are worthy and deserving of receiving that love from those around you, but also from yourself. No one can accept you if you don't accept you. And if labeling yourself helps accept you, that's wonderful, and I'm so happy for you, because you know what? It did for me. It helped me accept myself. But I also admit there are points where, rather than helping me accept myself, it limits who I really am. It limits my creativity, it limits my art, it limits the beautiful, magical being that I truly am. We don't need to be limited. We deserve to be expansive. We deserve to love and accept ourselves exactly as we are, regardless of whether we fit into a perfect little box or not. Because you know what? We don't. We don't fit into perfect little boxes. Each human is different. We come in different shapes. We come in different sizes. We come in different colors. We come from different backgrounds and ethnicities. We have different languages. We all might be human beings, but we're different. We have different gender, sexualities, different ways of our brains working. And that uniqueness, that specialness, that's what makes you you. You would never want to lose that. You would never want to strip away the things that make you beautifully and uniquely you, just so you could stick a label on yourself. Don't limit yourself in that way. You are an expansive being, and you deserve to be an expansive being. All right, friend. I believe that's it for today. I hope this wasn't a complete hot mess. We're going to edit, so we'll see how it turns out. But thank you so much for just hanging out with me, honestly. Like I said, I have really missed this a lot. This was the first time that I've done a video podcast like this, and it was super terrifying and scary, and I was constantly pausing this and questioning things and wanting to start over, and I just want you to know that you being here, this presence, this shared energy means so much to me. You mean so much to me. And I'm gonna keep trying, and I'm gonna keep getting better. For me, but also for you. Because I want to be able to help you. I want to be able to share my mistakes and have you learn from them the way that I have. And I will continue to keep learning from my mistakes. That's what this whole podcast episode is about. It's about learning from my mistakes. And I hope that I have. And I hope that you have too. And worst comes to worst, fuck it, I tried. But I hope you have a wonderful day or night, my friend, and I love you very muchly. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Remember that you are worthy and deserving of the love that you give. You're worthy and deserving of receiving the love that you give from those around you, but most importantly from yourself. So keep filling that cup of yours up with that love. Infuse yourself with love every chance you get. Live from a place of joy, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.